Aloha, y'all. Daniel Aaron with you. And, well, to you who asked me about this this is for you. And I suspect you, other you, may find it interesting and useful as well. And I've been creating a lot of videos recently about my teachers, coaches, guides, thanking them, as I recently came out of the closet using the title Reverend, even though I was ordained 31 years ago. Just now am I using it. There's a whole story behind what prompted that and why. And in the description here, you can read about that if you like, or reach out and ask me if you want. And as I've been so gratefully and blessedly feeling into thinking about all the amazing teachers and guides that my life has been blessed with, it occurred to me also, as came the question the other day, God, Spirit, of course, the ultimate teacher. Now, mind you, this video is about how to navigate a spiritual awakening. And when I experienced one, and you can call it by other main names if you want, going crazy, breakdown, Kundalini rising, so many different ways of describing what happened. When that happened for me, 1995, I knew nothing about how to navigate a spiritual awakening. I didn't know there was a thing that was a spiritual awakening. I barely knew of or believed in spirit. Of course I knew, because spirit is what animates every physical form. However, and God is certainly not a word I could have used at that point in my life. See, I grew up lower middle class family, SAD, standard American diet, including, what's the word for it? A lot of cynicism, really. And my parents had been Catholic, but they'd given up on it. I hadn't formally renounced, but informally they had renounced. So I grew up without religion. And in fact, in my hyper intellectual self, I kind of concluded that religion didn't make sense to me. People just inherit the religion. It's a big thing. It's your faith, your belief. It guides so much of your life, and you just fall into it because that's what your parents had. I don't know about that. So I was pretty much like, yeah, not atheist, because I was scared, put it simply. And so when I had this experience, which, by the way, here's me doing the impossible. I will tell you this story and give you some helpful guidelines for how to navigate. And I'll do that in just a few moments. This is something I've written an entire book about. If I tell the story, as I've done sometimes with private clients or on small private events, it's long, like more than an hour, and there are a lot of powerful lessons in it. This, though, is distilled. So 1995, part of what went on for me is a whole bunch of aspects of my life, my identity, my certainty fell. Right? Had been in a relationship with a woman for a long time. We were living together. That started to crumble. And as it started to crumble, I also started to realize, I don't understand myself or my emotions very well. She asked me something important and I didn't know how to answer, and that freaked me out. I got into therapy. I had some pretty radical changes to my body happening at that time. I'd given up using any kind of substances, wasn't doing a whole lot, but I think in those days I was smoking pot and drinking beer. And I was also training for a state judo tournament, and I was really into it. So I was not quite Muhammad Ali getting ready for the big fight, but my small scale version of that. And in that process, I also made some shifts in my nutrition. Blue-green algae, which, believe it or not, is known to relate to psychotic breaks. Ooh. And so my physical form, I lost some extra weight, gained some muscle, shifted my identity a bit. That happened in various ways. The question about, I don't understand my feelings, that led me to get into therapy. And I started learning some things there. And I could go on there a whole bunch. Oh, actually, one more precursor I'll mention. And that is, I'd been seriously devoted to writing in the, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years prior to this. Like, as much as possible, that was my exclusive focus. I did odd jobs here and there, and I kept my bills really low in order to focus on that. And I'd finally gotten to the point where I was sending some stories, poems, prose poems for publication, knowing that the odds are, and the stories go, that every young writer gets their wall plastered with rejection letters. You get, hundreds before you get a breakthrough. Around that time also, my writing teacher, Pat Schneider, she pulled me aside one day and said, I can't tell you this is who this is from, but somebody has given this donation because they believe in your writing, which I think it was $100, which to me at that point was a big deal. Of course, the bigger deal was like, whoa, some random person, I guess not random because they knew who I was, I didn't know who they were, donated to me. So those and a whole bunch of other things were swirling inside me. And if I'm keeping to my word, I am keeping to my word in distilling this. I'll say it this way. My experience was that I lost interest in and touch with the physical, material, earthly life. As in, I stopped being so interested in some of the things that I'd been interested in before, including eating, sleeping. I had so much energy moving through me. Old behaviors and attitudes were falling away. New things were happening. Somewhere in this process, over several months, I also came into a different new relationship, which shifted me with a woman, which shifted me in really powerful ways. And so in this condensed period, some things started happening, which I can now call psycho-spiritual phenomena. Like, there were weird experiences for me, a spontaneous rebirthing. Maybe I'd heard the word rebirthing, but I certainly had no idea what it was. And I was years before I got into teaching breath work myself. Actually, not years. It was only 1 year before. However, I was far from, I had never done anything like meditation or yoga or spiritual work of any sort. And nonetheless, I had this spontaneous rebirthing experience. It took a while before I recognized that that's what it was. I was experiencing like a sense of internal cleansing, like a connection with spirit, God, the divine. That was the way I interpret it, is it was like a force coming inside me and cleaning out rooms in my psyche. It was a really palpable experience. And because my behaviors were less earthly or grounded, people started noticing. I lived in a co-op home at that point with a bunch of people, and they were noticing I'm not behaving like usual. One of them actually said to me, hey, Daniel, I'm concerned about you. I said, oh, okay. Hi, somebody just sent a message. My glasses on, so I can't see the name, but I'm thinking we don't know each other from the general shape. So welcome, thank you. And he said to me, hey, I called your therapist. And I was like, why did you call my therapist? How'd that happen? That's weird. And she said, bring him in for a psychiatric evaluation. And my friend said that to me. I was like, all right, I'm going to have to put my glasses on so I can read. Another message came in. Shuvo, all right, welcome, Shuvo. Thank you. And I was like, no, thanks. I don't want to go into the hospital for a psychiatric evaluation. He said to me, I'd feel really a lot better if you would. Like, oh, okay, well, he'd feel better. So, okay, yeah, for you, I'll do it. My friend Rick. And so I thought, all right, cool. Meanwhile, here's a little weird piece. When I got into blue-green algae, my friend that turned me on to it, he gave me an audio cassette. literally audio cassette, called Dead Doctors Don't Lie. And part of what it shared, some of y'all may know this, part of what it shared is a perspective that doctors actually have a smaller than usual lifespan. In fact, a lot of, as you might guess, the hospital system, health system is really about disease and not health. And so I was learning this perspective that, hey, I'm my own doctor. I am my own master in some way. And as I heard my friend's request for me to go to the hospital, I also thought, yeah, that's fine. I can talk to any doctor. No big deal. Well, we went, and I didn't think again in earthly terms. And I had a sweat shorts on, and like sweatpants cut off, and I had what did I have, a t-shirt and a sweatshirt, and we go to the hospital, and then we had to, the way it worked is we had to go into the emergency room for a psychiatric evaluation. I was like, that's weird, and clearly that's not an emergency. So it's emergencies, so there were real emergencies, and we had to wait a long time. I mean, like, I think hours. And meanwhile, for me, in the midst of this process, which later on some would describe as a manic episode, I would call a Kundalini rising or spiritual awakening, I was in the midst of really accelerated thoughts and a lot of energy. That's, part of why I wasn't sleeping. And the waiting did not feel good, as Bob Marley might say. However, we waited, finally got in for the interview, and it was like painful. It was a podunk hospital. It was explaining things. Hey, Brian Kelly popped in. Hi, Brian Kelly. Thanks for popping in. Thanks for the kind words. I got frustrated. I'm doing my best to make this a shorter story. I got frustrated in the middle of the conversation, the interview, with the questions that were coming to me. So, why don't we take a break? Okay, we'll take a break. I decided at that point, you know what? There's no good reason for me to be here. I came for him. He doesn't need me to be here. I'm going to leave. So I was like, I don't want to make a big deal out of this. I do this still sometimes at parties. I'm like, I don't want to go through the big, saying goodbye thing. I'm just going to leave. And I just had this feeling like, I'm going to leave. So I left, and felt so good to leave. Started walking. I didn't know where I was going. Meanwhile, again, I had no shoes on, sweat shorts. I didn't bring an ID with me. 20 miles from home. I left my friend there waiting for me. I just had to go. And so I was like, I don't know where I'm going. I'm just walking. I'm just happy to be out of that place and walking. And then I'm walking, and I realize I'm heading right toward this kind of mountain peak. And not really a peak. It's a hill, a small mountain. And at the top of it, there was this monument, and I could see it. It was like a stone tower. And then I realized, oh, that's Poet's Seat. That's the place my friends told me I need to visit. For years, they've been telling me that. Now, meanwhile, 2 weeks before, right, some big things had happened for me. I did really well in that judo tournament, shockingly well. Right, I got promoted from white belt to brown belt suddenly. Plus, those poems, 5 of them got published. Unheard of. So as I'm walking, suddenly realize I'm walking toward this mountain. I'm like, okay, clearly that's where I'm meant to go. So I go up to that mountain, and I had an experience that I describe as being a lightning rod for God. Again, mind you, I had no context. I had no religious background, religious education, no spiritual education. Nonetheless, as I got to the top of this tower, what it felt like is that divine energy. And again, I couldn't use the word God at that point. Like, it was an uncomfortable word for me. It felt like, though, divine energy was just pouring into me. I felt like a lightning rod, and I was like freaked out by it. And I remember it was just starting to rain. The sky went dark, and I laid down on the floor of this tower, and the floor might have been concrete, I don't know, stone. It was cold, but it wasn't really cold. It was just that I was so hot. And I remember as the rain started to fall lightly, steam started coming off my body. It's like, whoa, this is weird. And then I had this moment as I laid there, and it was the most clear thought form that said, you never need to worry. It was a thought form. It was a feeling. It wasn't in words. The words that I put to it best are, there's never a need for fear. No matter what happens, unless my physical body is killed, I will heal. I will recover. And the peace that came with that was tremendous. I stayed for just a few minutes and then I got this impulse, time to move on. I didn't have the expression then that when I saw the book title years later, before enlightenment, chop wood, after enlightenment, chop wood, something like that. You get the point. Was like, okay, I had a moment of enlightenment. I wouldn't say I was enlightened. I got lighter though. I'm like, all right, time to move on with it. So I climbed back down the tower, started walking, didn't know where I was going. Amazingly enough, Rick figured out where I had gone, came up, pulled up. He's like, how you doing? I'm like, well, pretty amazingly well. Like, just had a very exalted experience. And I said, I don't want to go back to the hospital. He's like, yeah, I get it. I'm sorry. It was a bad idea. But we had to go back to pick up our friend who'd come with us. So we went back, and that resulted in me getting locked up. That was an unexpected twist. So how to navigate a spiritual awakening? Have support. One of the best things that came for me out of that period was the realization that there is support. The Spiritual Emergence Network. I don't know if that still exists even. That was a major help for me as I kind of cleared the first hurdles. There is support. There's a lot of support. There are a lot of people that have had spiritual awakenings that can help you, that can guide you. I'm happy to help you if you would like to discuss. And I encourage you to trust also. Certainly it can be confusing and challenging. Right. That was one of the biggest challenges for me, is I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was going on. I felt these moments of like bliss, enlightenment, freedom, human potential, but I didn't understand it. Couldn't speak about it. And at the same time, my old life was blown up. Right. One of the ways I described it is God grabbed me by the hair, lifted me up and said, look, man, there's more to the world than you've been seeing. And it was awesome and beautiful and amazing. And it was also horrible because I was so unmoored. I was so confused. So being connected to people, tethering yourself, having practices that connect you to the earth, also really good when so much divine energy is pouring in. I've been in a phase like this recently. It's good to be connected to the ground. I'm doing a lot of barefoot walking these days. It helps us. All right. Hopefully that was entertaining, interesting, innocuous, not harmful. And again, if you are experiencing something like this, reach out. I'm happy to connect with you. Send me a direct message or email daniel@danielaaron.com. Or if you just like some support with whatever is going on in your life, I'd love to meet you, right? The way I work is I spend a little bit of time with a lot of people at no cost, and I help them create miracles and breakthroughs and insights. Few of those people say, I want to go further. And we end up doing some great work together. They make a bigger commitment. And that's cool. Don't have to do that, though. Either case, I would love to connect. Thanks so much for watching, y'all. Thanks for being interested in spiritual awakening. I love you.